I've gone months being like that, and then I finally go on a surf trip, and it's like I've been asleep for like a whole quarter of a year, and I'm like, what the hell have I been doing?
What I think most people want in entrepreneurship, which is freedom, not necessarily freedom to just be a lazy bum, the freedom to think critically and to think strategically about your business.
Welcome to the $1 Million Sellers Podcast. I'm your host, Nick Shuquette. Today we've got Nader Youngchild on the show. He's the co-founder of Data Driven, who has now been acquired by Carbon6. And he's also helped the brands he represents on Amazon achieve over $500 million in growth. Welcome to the show, Nader. I'll go ahead and kick it your way and let you tell the listeners a little bit about you, where you're from, and how you got into where you're at now. You've got an interesting story, so let the listeners know where you came from, the move you made, and how it's working out for you.
Oh, awesome. Thanks very much, Nick. I'm excited to be here. Let's see where to start. Before I started helping sellers and working with sellers on Amazon, I used to work at Amazon. I'm actually from Washington State. And while going to school, I started delivering groceries in Washington State online. We let people make their orders online, then we went and got their groceries. We worked on the islands in Washington State, so it was a big barrier to entry. You had to get in the ferry line, pay a ferry toll. And so we kind of had like customers that were trapped, if you will. So the pain was real. And I was a poor college kid, and I was also recognizing I wanted to start a business that had low overhead. And I realized that I could illegally just walk up and down the ferry line and access the entire population set and tell them about my services. So that's how I got started. In e-commerce, my first e-commerce was literally a white page, and it said, "Tell me what you want," from Trader Joe's, Costco, and Target. And we went and got it. And very quickly, that was when I started to realize there's quite a taxonomy, a data science, a complication, if you will, just to like catalogs and nuances of products and customers' preferences. And it sparked an interest for me in how much of that like can sit in Excel sheets. And you can start to do like predictive, and you can kind of start to say, okay, when a customer asks for Dairy Gold 2% half-gallon milk and they don't have it, maybe there's another product on the shelf that actually is the most like that product. How can you predict that? So I had fun playing with that. My partner and I eventually moved on to Seattle. Want to get to a larger customer base. At the time, there was no one delivering groceries in all of the West Coast. The last company kind of doing it on the East Coast was a company called Peapods, but no one was really delivering groceries on the West Coast. So we were in Seattle, only ones doing it. Similarly, we went to high rises that didn't have parking garages. So we were looking for that customer who's got a big pain point. It's obvious and easy to access. So we just, again, illegally snuck in the apartments and knocked on every door and gave flyers so that we could access the customers. And started running the business there. It was a good experience. Limited customer set though. There's only so many high rises without parking garages in Seattle. And then all of a sudden we got a phone call from King 5 News, the local news in Seattle. They said, "Hey, we wanted to do a segment on grocery delivery for citizens of Seattle because we have been told that Amazon is about to launch their test beta program called Amazon Fresh in just Seattle. And we wanted to show Seattle people their local option versus the new, I guess now local option in Seattle with Amazon being there."
Yeah.
And we were like, holy cow, we were a little like, oh my God, we're going to go from 0 competitors to 1 competitor who's for sure going to eat our lunch. But we were young and dumb and excited. And we were like, oh, this is the greatest marketing opportunity of all time. So they said, we're going to buy the same groceries from you guys and from Amazon. And we're going to let the viewers see, the difference in cost and the difference in how long it takes to get delivered. We delivered faster than Amazon and cheaper. And we were like, this is incredible. We were so excited. I don't remember if it was exactly like a Friday to Sunday moment, but it was like the most inspiring Friday. And then it ended up being the most humbling Sunday, like of all time. I think it was 300,000 hits to the website and 3 customers.
Wow.
And still to this day, I don't truly know the answer, whether it was, people just didn't want to make their orders right then when they were hearing about it, or there's probably, a multitude of reasons that could explain it. But to me, it was like this wake up moment of, holy cow, you're now getting, you're at the table with the big boys, and a lever, if you will, of advertising that you'd never be able to pull off on your own. That was incredible, was not very effective for you. So it was super humbling. It forced me, I come from a blue collar family. I'm the first young child to ever go to college. And so I didn't really have the mentor set or the group of people around me to kind of bounce ideas off of the situation I was in. If I knew then what I know now, I would have probably tried to get funding. At the time, we had just shifted over. We were also starting to do basically kayak.com with groceries. So you would just put your grocery list in, and then we would go, so let's say you had 10 things on your grocery list, and we'd go find on the internet where the cheapest place for those 10 products were, and we'd have them shipped to you. So whether that means 3 of the items are going to come from Amazon, 2 from Walmart, 3 from drugstore.com, you'd get all 10 items, and we would make referral fees across each of those. And so we were starting to do that. We had gotten listed as one of the top 10 apps not to have to leave your home from Huffington Post, in front of Instacart, who had just gotten started.
Nice.
Again, if I knew then what I know now, I would have done things differently. We also missed the pandemic, which had a massive impact on grocery delivery. So a lot of factors went into it. But long story short, I told my partner, "Hey man, I'm gonna reach out to all these Amazon folks that signed up for our service, because a lot of people signed up without Amazon emails. Maybe they were 1, potential customers, or 2, worked at Amazon and were checking out who their competitor was or local competitor." And so I reached out to all of them, basically asking for an interview. And I remember, I think it was 3 people replied, basically saying like, "This is a little immature, it's kind of weird." Everyone else was crickets. And then one person actually responded with like, I don't remember exactly, but they were like, "This is weird, but kind of cool. I'm interested in meeting you." Met them. And then that's when they told me before the interview process at Amazon is wild. It's an entire day. There's a bar raiser. You go in, you're hour after hour after hour with different people. One of those people's job is to like just break you down, and see how you are when you're not on your game. Pretty interesting experience. Before that, the person I was interacting with was telling me about, how Amazon basically has kind of 3 different arms, if you will, within their ecosystem. You have, you need product, you need to store product, you need to find a way to get it to customers. You also need a place in which customers can find out, which product is right for them, why this one versus that one. And then lastly, you need a system that goes and gets those eyeballs to actually go to those detail pages. So kind of the world of advertising, the world of detail pages, and the world of inventory management. And they said that there was this job that they had that actually gave you the opportunity to run one brand. You got to run all 3 sections inside of Amazon. And their pitch to me was, "Nader, do this, and you're going to have this unique opportunity to basically learn the ins and outs of all the parts of Amazon, how they work together. And you might not like 2 of them, you might not like any of them, but it'll give you the opportunity to figure out what you like, what don't you like." And so that's what I did. So I joined Amazon. At the time, my job was to take these really large brands offline, and make them big on Amazon. Amazon knew at the time that toilet paper was the number, I think like 8 out of every 10 households that go to a store to buy toilet paper are buying something else with the toilet paper. So Amazon was going off this data to basically like the gateway drug to a lot of other things to be purchased in a cart was, if people bought toilet paper at your store, they're going to buy a lot of deodorant, shampoos, batteries, all the other things humans buy. And so my job was to take these big toilet paper brands offline, like Charmin, Quilted Northern, Angel Soft, and make them big on Amazon. And so I was basically handed the keys to the kingdom. I was told, "Nader, here's how these algorithms work. Here's the metrics they care about. Here's how much this metric is weighted over that metric." My job was to kind of put my finger on the scale for those brands to make sure that they were doing the right inputs into the Amazon system so that they hit those, what the system wanted to see, so they can maximize their exposure and then eventually conversion, knowing that they're a brand that is trusted. So they just needed that exposure. So took brands from 0, or a couple were doing $1 million, to over 30 million in less than 6 months. And so I got to touch scale. I hands down was not touching before in my startup world. And that was really exciting to me. And then that was kind of the catalyst though for me to say, okay, I've learned how the ecosystem at Amazon works, at least the thought process that goes into controlling all of these kind of gatekeepers or mechanisms that keep it all flowing. And I like my time at Amazon. It is fairly entrepreneurial for a big company. But I also, for various reasons, I saw it wasn't for me long-term. So I wanted to go back to entrepreneurship. And so that's when I said, okay, I'm going to start an Amazon consulting agency. Basically take all of the secrets and tricks and know-how and give access to it to brands who want to work with me. And at the time I had started, I couldn't get anyone to say yes to work with me. But that's also because I was like idealistic and young. And I was used to having an @amazon.com email address. So I was like, I'm only going to work with Patagonia and Quicksilver and just these brands that I liked and admired from my youth. And crickets, none of them responded. And then I eventually found my way into finding a few brands I could work with. And then the model that I set up to make it zero risk for them was I did percentage of growth. So my first couple of years actually in growing Amazon businesses was eat what you kill. If I ran their business and they didn't grow, they didn't pay me. If I ran their business and it grew, I got a piece of that growth delta. Ran that Amazon agent, then it became an agency. Started getting a lot of employees, more clients to serve those. And I ran into kind of the classic, what got you here isn't going to get you there situation. I think a lot of entrepreneurs find themselves in. One, the secrets, the tricks were becoming more well-known. So they were less secret, they were less unique. So they had less of a specific, value add impact to my brand, and all the other brands were doing something similar, whether it was number of images on your detail pages or using infographics or, breaking certain review thresholds or leveraging variations and breaking variations and different life cycles of an ASIN. A lot of groups out there, it went from not an industry. There was no $1 Million Seller Club. There was no seminars. There was no group. There was nobody even on YouTube really selling good or bad advice. And then all of a sudden it exploded. Lots of people were on Amazon. Lots of people were sharing their experiences on Amazon, and a whole online community started to emerge. And that made access to information cheap. And so if my core business model of an agency was a little bit execution, but really it was access to information, wrapped into execution. And so that business model was threatened, significantly. And so, that was the external factor. And then the internal factor was humans kind of suck. Humans have good days. They have bad days. It's hard to, sometimes humans do something and it works, but it didn't work because the thing they did, but they miss a lot. They misassociated. It was because the thing they did, and they got to go fail doing that same thing 10 times before they finally are like, oh, it actually wasn't the one time I thought it was that resulted in this outcome. And so I struggled to grow an account management team scalably. I didn't struggle to grow one like outward facing. I could hire people, I could keep them employed, we could do good things for Amazon businesses. But internally in my heart, I was up at night worrying about the account manager do this for that brand. I know they have a baby coming. Are they even thinking about X, Y, and Z, these future things coming for the brand? And so it was a struggle. I just saw that it wasn't scalable. And that was when I said, I want to build what eventually became data driven. I want to build a system that basically looks under every stone and finds out everything that should be being done to an Amazon business. And in our first customer was my agency. All it was a notification system inside of my agency, so I didn't have to rely on my account managers to know what to do every day. It said, here's the 10 things you should be doing on this business based on we're seeing these inputs, we're seeing these outputs. We think you should do A, B, C, and D. And that was where data driven started. And then we also saw sellers and brands were demanding to do things more as individuals or internally at organizations. They kind of wanted to control their Amazon business. And so we saw over time that it was likely that there'd be less brands and sellers wanting to outsource all of their Amazon business to people that weren't internal. And so we said, just let's see if we can work on building this tool so it can be external facing so that brands can use it instead of just our account managers. And that's when we started putting the hands of data driven into our customers. And then fast forward a year or two, we got to, I think again, what got you here isn't going to get you there situation. It's kind of I think a revolving door for entrepreneurs. For us, we had gotten an advisor that was way smarter than us in data science and machine learning and statistics and artificial intelligence. And basically he told us, you need X number of data to be analyzed to truly turn over decision-making to machines. And that X number of data was honestly just far too many sellers and ASINs and transactions than we were probably ever going to be able to put together a sales organization, account management team to service. And so in order to actually get towards our goal of turning decision-making over to machines, we needed a partner who understood distribution, at a different level. And so that's when we started looking. When we started looking for a partner, it was everything from partners, investments. It didn't start as a pursuing acquisition. And then it ended up, we found a great partner in Carbon6, who owns many other tools in the Amazon seller and vendor space, that for various reasons, we felt was the right place to land for data driven, and that they could take it to a level that we probably would have struggled trying to do it on our own. And so that's where we are today. We got acquired earlier this year and have been integrating into their ecosystem ever since, and kind of excited for what the future holds there.
Nice, man. As I hear you tell your story, I'm reminded of why I like data driven so much, because like we use it in our business. We started using that self-tasking service. And then I don't even know if you know this, but we just recently handed all of it to you guys. So you're managing all of our accounts now.
Craig said that. Yeah.
Yeah. And, Craig's great. I love working with Craig too. And I love like the balance that you guys bring to the table. And I didn't even know that you kind of had a grayish background as well. Like I always thought Craig was like the hacker and Nader was like the guy who used to work at Amazon and knew all the right moves to make for Amazon. But as you tell your story, it's clear that you figure out, how to work, between systems and what's going on. And, like you said, navigating that ferry line and, popping into those high rises. Figuring out how to sell things. And I think that's the beauty of data driven, because on Amazon, you have to have both. You cannot just do everything by the book, because you're going to get smashed by a competitor that doesn't care about doing things by the book. You've got to be able to I like to say, take off the white hat and put on your gray hat or your black hat or like whatever it is. And you got to get dirty a little bit, to truly compete, especially in some of those more competitive niches. So that was cool hearing your background and
absolutely
all that stuff. It makes it more clear to me as to why you guys have been successful in that niche.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. I think like a good microcosm example of what you're describing for us was we started to, when we were first building out data-driven recommendation, it started just with, what does Nader, my co-founder, our other employees, what did we think should be done when X happens to your business? What should you do? And then we started to measure it. And then we started to realize, some of our recommendations were accurate. The expected outcome, was, and then sometimes it wasn't, or sometimes it was gray. And so we couldn't quite prop it up as like a recommendation we can always stand behind. Or in a deodorant category, it seemed to be 90% of the time that input-output relationship was true, but then in electronics or TVs or vacuums, it wasn't. So we started to get unique recommendations by category. And then that's actually what motivated us to, and we haven't quite perfected this, but actually not having our consideration set of all things that could be done on an Amazon business just coming out of our heads, but actually how can we get the smart, ingenious, unique, creative things outside of our heads, whether it's this seller or that seller or this vendor trying different things. How can those be consideration sets into our system as well, so that we can truly be like a more of a marketplace of knowledge that's not fixed but dynamic. And so we started letting our sellers, as they did things that was outside of what we were doing with them. They were just trying things on their own. We had this peanut butter company in Portland, Portland, Oregon, small company. Took them from totally irrelevant to top 10 in peanut butter at a certain point on Amazon. And that became their pitch deck for Safeway and distribution and all kinds of brick and mortar, which is really cool. They just literally took a screenshot of being top 10 on Amazon and was like, do you or do you not want this in your Safeway? And it actually worked for him. Side note for folks out there looking for brick and mortar distribution. But anyways, he started, this was, like 5 years ago now. I don't remember exactly. But he started, he told us that, hey, I'm just going to send all my Instagram traffic to Amazon. And we were like, okay, never really thought about it. We definitely weren't doing it, and we didn't know if it had an impact. And all of a sudden we were like, it had no impact for the first portion of a few months. And then all of a sudden everything changed. Impressions like 10x'd, and they weren't 10xing at the same rate in which he was bringing traffic from Instagram. It'd be like, 100 clicks from Instagram, which would mean 100 new hits to your detail page, which you would expect. But it would be like 1,000 new hits to the detail page on the run rate change. And then conversion rate was also increasing at the same time. Page views were increasing. We're like, this is statistically significant. This does not happen on repeat. And so our system was able to identify long before Amazon announced switching from A9 seeding over to A10 and actually giving basically ASINs more credit and giving them more value internally and giving them more exposure if you bring outside traffic to your detail pages. Our system was able to detect that was a thing long before Amazon made it public and was telling people about it. So we were recommending that to our clients and to different ASINs we were working on long before it was becoming common knowledge. And so that was also what motivated us to say, okay, we can't just have this fixed system that's just as smart as we once were. It's got to be dynamic. It's got to be informed by new ideas, new data, and constantly evolving. And so our recommendation system evolves over time. And so the recommendations you get on your ASIN today might be different based off of the learnings that the system has. And that was when, again, our advisor was like, in order to actually do that properly and at scale with strong accuracy, you need millions and millions and millions and millions of data points analyzed in order to truly hand that over at a statistically significant level, which was frustrating, humbling. But I think as entrepreneurs find themselves having to do often, if you can just kind of reframe the challenge or the problem in your head of, okay, it can be frustrating or it can be a clear path to how to succeed.
Yeah.
And so once we kind of switched that shift, to say, okay, instead of being frustrated and trying to fight against it, let's just focus on how can we build a path that is in line with that reality.
Yeah. So what did you guys end up doing?
We ended up fumbling through it on our own. We went through 3 iterations of it, complicated, but basically you need big data. From big data, you need to turn it over to algorithms. Algorithms are just rules, like if X, then Y. Turn it over to those. And then we tried to identify and like make notifications happen when if X, then Y wasn't resulting in like a range of which we thought Y should be. And it was getting too much. And so then that was when we started seeking partners. And that's when we crossed paths with Carbon 6 and learned about their experience, their founder's experience. Justin Cobb's experience in mass distribution, in a different industry, but really focused on getting the hands of what he was selling into lots of people. And we saw that as a skill set that jived well with what our technology needed. And we also saw that they owned a lot of great tools like SoStock, which understands inventory management really well, and PPC Entourage, which does a really good job understanding automation around advertising management, and PixelMe, which does a good job of understanding how to and impacts of bringing outside traffic into Amazon. And so we saw that our recommendations maybe went this level deep across all things on an Amazon business. Now all of a sudden, if they could be amplified with PixelMe and PPC Entourage, SoStock, and other tools like Carbon 6, they could go this much deeper into their sophistication, and maybe even kind of expedite the quality of those recommendations on top of Carbon 6, really looking to serve everything from the small seller to the big seller and everyone in between, and that really being key to the technology, needing all of that data to get smart fast.
Nice, man. Yeah, I'm excited to see how all that plays out as Carbon6. As Carbon6 gets more integrated with data driven, and as they acquire more companies, I think it's like I think it's one of like the best acquisitions they made. I was super excited when I found out they were acquiring you guys.
Awesome.
I just thought it was a really good play by them, especially as they try and get tapped into like that, like the MDS type members. I think data driven is going to really help with that, and it's just going to be good for everyone, getting involved with it.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, we're excited. We're also, I think Carbon6 is they're unique in that I found them unique in that they're quite humble in looking to lean on experts who have slammed their heads into the wall over and over on these problems, and they really give credence to the different team members, and they're a company of founders, of entrepreneurs, which is so unique. Right, because now I work at Carbon6, but I come from 15 years of running my own company in the Amazon space, and so does Mike Zagari and different team members. So it's exciting to kind of have us all in one room and kind of see what they can pull out of us. It's cool.
Yeah, and I know it's also allowed you to do some great things personally, right? Like you mentioned, successful ski bum, living the van life. I know you just got back from Bali, which I was recently in Bali, and that place blew my mind. It really changed my life. I had a nice little segue from like a surf trip that I normally take, where I'm just surfing. Things are pretty remote, and then you got to go back to real life. But I had a little bit of time in Bali, which allowed me to live my life, as an entrepreneur, and segue to like coming back home. So it was really eye-opening for me just to see how things are over there, because it's quite different from like Central America or Mexico, where I usually travel for surfing. Like there's nothing left to be desired over there, in my opinion. You have everything you want. So yeah, I'd love to hear how Bali was for you, but I'd also love to hear more about, how your entrepreneurship and your acquisition has really allowed you to, amplify the things that you love to do in your own personal life. Cause I think a lot of us get into entrepreneurship for those exact reasons.
Yeah. I think there's a funny trap that I think you can fall into with entrepreneurship, where you're like, I'll work 80 hours for myself as long as I don't have to work 40 hours for somebody else.
Yeah.
And then you do that for a couple of years and you're like, oh, wait a minute. I don't know if that's quite the trade-off I thought it was. Right. Because 80 hours of work and just because, your boss isn't breathing down your neck, is still 80 hours instead of 40 hours. So in terms of Bali, my wife had wanted to go there for quite a long time. And we got married. Our wedding got delayed because of COVID. She's Canadian, I'm American. I couldn't actually get to my own wedding because the border closed. Kind of crazy story for another time. And anyway, so our life got delayed, our wedding got delayed, our marriage got delayed, and eventually our honeymoon got delayed. We finally were able to get married, and then Data Driven was getting acquired by Carbon6, and so I couldn't necessarily like hop off somewhere and disappear with her for a while. So she'd always wanted to go to Bali, so we set this like, okay, about a year after the acquisition, we'll kind of do our official honeymoon. And so we spent the first week in Bali fully detached, enjoying each other's time, and thinking about life together. And then Bali's so far from the United States that we were like, if we're going to go that far, let's just stay. Let's find some co-living, co-working spaces so we can just work from Bali. So that's what we did. So then we spent a few more weeks in Bali.
Nice.
There's these things called co-living, co-working spaces. It's basically like just fairly more affordable kind of hotel-ish accommodations, of which you're staying with mostly other entrepreneurs. And they're usually tied to these co-working spaces that are open 24 hours a day. They have killer internet. And you're with other entrepreneurs. In my case, I was able to actually meet with several other Amazon sellers who were there in Bali as well. And yeah, I think that's to your comment about the acquisition and how does that change my life in terms of opening things up personally. I think I chose to be an entrepreneur very intentionally back when I left Amazon. I chose it for a lifetime. I didn't choose it for a particular business. And I think that has helped me because I had to pivot my business numerous times. And I think I would have struggled with some of that. I might have held on to something that wasn't there anymore if I was like just committed to a business, but I was committed to being an entrepreneur. And what that means is, sometimes you need to work 15, 20 hours in a day, but also sometimes you set up really good systems and you get to enjoy the benefits of just checking in on things 1 or 2 hours a day, or even skipping a day every once in a while. And I think over time, as someone who did that for 15 years, I was able to kind of master different ways of organizing my work and organizing my checkups and organizing different things that I think have helped me access more of what I think most people want in entrepreneurship, which is freedom. Not necessarily freedom to just be a lazy bum, but freedom. I think there's the freedom to think critically and to think strategically about your business. Sadly doesn't come from having a lot of meetings or being diligent on every email or Slack message. It comes from the free space, like after getting your best wave, out in the ocean, just going back and sitting in the lineup and thinking about how, whatever that like just moment of like you were released, you were free of your mind, and then you come back to your mind. And sometimes, the most pivotal things in your business might come from those little moments. And if you don't give yourself the space to have those moments, it's really hard to artificially create them in Skype meetings or all the kind of standard ways we operate our businesses, I find. And so for me, I was a ski bum before, sleeping in my car, doing everything I could to ski. When I was working at Amazon, I would often sleep at the ski resort at night, do night skiing, and then make my way back to Amazon in the morning for work. And so for me, it was like kind of my true north. It's where I'm the most free. It's where I'm the most kind of like out of my head and into whatever that I don't know, maybe true essence is in my world. Some people call it God. Some people, people have different ways of describing it. But to me, it's definitely when I'm on a mountain. And so having that true north helped me, just knowing that, I wasn't building a business so that I could sell it, or that so an investor could be impressed with the P&L, or so all these other things that can distract us from the true reason we build businesses. I knew my true north was I wanted to be able to ski and have the freedom to ski when the powder was good. And so having that true north helped me build the business around that, whether it was, when I have meetings, for example, I don't have an agenda before the meeting because as I'm skiing, I think of different things I want to talk about, this person or that person or this client or that client. And as I'm skiing, as I'm on the chairlift, I add it to, okay, that's the thing I'm going to talk to them about by the time that meeting comes around. So when that meeting comes around and I don't need to prep for the meeting because I already have a laundry list of things. And those things are usually higher quality than if I just gave myself 20 minutes to prep before the meeting. So I kind of chipped away at that over the years. And I think, finally being able to exit. This is my first time exiting a company. My first startup, my buddy, when I went to Amazon, my buddy kept pursuing the business and he had done an acquisition with it while I was still advising. So I got to see parts of an acquisition, but I wasn't kind of at the center of it. This was my first time experiencing that. And when you do that, you get some money at closing. And so you kind of get a big, kind of moment to breathe, put a bunch of money in your savings account or figure out what you're going to do with it. So I think that helps. And then also being able to hitch my wagon to a bigger organization that has more resources, that kind of has a larger kind of zeitgeist pushing it forward, if you will, is exciting. And being able to do that without having to just go get a job at another big company, but do it in a way of giving them my baby and helping, trying to help them, make the most of it, while also now I have the opportunity to contribute to many other parts of Carbon 6, which has been really fun to be able to go somewhere that sees value in you rather than just sees you as ours. like sees you as bringing valuable experience or knowledge that can be applied in various ways. So I think it's been a really beautiful experience. It's been humbling in parts and challenging. I would say like selling a company and then integrating a company is very, very different than building and running one. That's tripped me up. There's been things that have tripped me up. I just didn't plan for it, didn't expect. But I think over those kind of speed bumps, it's been a really exciting kind of downhill ride, and excited to see where it goes.
Nice, man. Yeah, it's always great when, being true to yourself works out. In the long run, it can certainly be a little scary at certain moments. I know I've experienced, self-doubt and, wondering if I'm doing the right things. Am I being a lazy piece of crap? Am I being a surf bum? Right? Like those thoughts would go through my head. The way I look at surfing is exactly how you expressed skiing. That's where my best ideas come. Surfing more is 100% good for my business. My partner knows that. His thing is golf.
Nice.
So
yep.
We all have, and he really inspires me because he has it on his calendar more than I do. Golf. Hey. You go look at his calendar. He's like, oh, I'm golfing, man.
Nice.
That's his priority because he knows that's how he shows up in the best way possible, is by making sure he gets that time in. I wish I didn't have to have so many things line up over here for the waves to be good. I think you kind of understand that as a skier, right? Sometimes there's really good conditions, sometimes they're not. Golfers got to deal with that too. For the most part, you can go out any day and hit some balls and get that satisfaction.
Very true. Very true. I think for the listeners, if I could give a book recommendation, and it's more in your alley than mine. I surf, but I surf. I honestly surf because I surf because my wife takes me somewhere that there isn't a mountain. So
okay,
it's the reason I surf. But I love it. I've come to really enjoy it. But there's this book out there called "Let My People Go Surfing" by the founder of Patagonia. I couldn't recommend it enough. He does a really good job of just articulating this concept in greater detail. He references his MBA not being a degree, but actually being something called management by absence. So how can you hire the right person with the right inspiration, the right motivation for the right job, and then get out of their way. And I think that that idea is quite linked to this idea. Similarly, how do we get out of our own way if we're just solo entrepreneurs, and if we do have a team, how can we get out of the way of our team members doing great work? And I think you find a lot of those answers in the surfing for you, the skiing, snowboarding for me, the golf for your partner, the thing that allows someone to just get out of their head, out of their inbox, off the keyboard, I think is so powerful.
Yeah, it's powerful, and I think it's critical, right? I think a lot of people deal with those same struggles that we mentioned, the self-doubt, am I being lazy? But it's crazy to me how sucked in to business and chasing money and your to-do list that you can be, even when you're aware of this stuff.
Yeah.
I've gone months being like that, and then I finally go on a surf trip, and it's I've been asleep for a whole quarter of a year, and I'm like, what the hell have I been doing? You really need that to snap out of that, because we do get sucked into it, and it's important to have that kind of opportunity to look back and realize what you've been doing. So I think that stuff's becoming more to the forefront as people talk about mental health more, and taking that stuff more seriously. Being a father, right? I have kids too, so that really plays into it. I have to make sure I'm showing up there very well as a father and as a husband, because if I don't, then all that guilt and kind of shame, it eats away at your energy, and you don't show up as well. So I think it's similar. Those things that are important to you, you've got to continue to nurture those things and not let it die. I'm sure you have friends too that you grew up skiing with, and then they stop skiing and they're like, oh yeah, I'm just too busy with work, or oh yeah, I got the kids now and I'm married, and you could tell they're just a piece of them is dying, on the
100%.
inside.
Yeah.
And I truly believe it's better for the wife, for the kids, for the business, that if you keep doing those things.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. And I think it helps people to get around, to have, whether it's formal groups or informal groups or just peers that kind of help give them a mirror to reflect, are they staying honest with what they want? I have a men's group that I meet with, where we kind of like check in on each other once a month, about, are we staying true to what we wanted as individual men long before we became husbands, fathers, CEOs, acquired entrepreneurs, all the things all the hats we eventually end up wearing. Just make, and I couldn't recommend that enough. And if, it doesn't have to be formal, it doesn't even have to be that informal group. And sometimes it's just, the friend that you are living totally different lives, but knows you deep, and just that connection. And I've often found, the best way to ask for help is giving help. When you show up for someone and you're that sounding board for them, I think, there's like an unspoken reciprocal, that comes from that. So I couldn't recommend seeking, peers to interact with, to help you like stay true to your essence. Aside from the peers you need to like help you make better Amazon decisions or the nuanced stuff. I think those peers, and to be honest, MDS is like such a unique group that finds itself right on that, like, kind of balancing beam. I've seen it, at least at the events I've gone to, of there's surely the specifics, like, hey, do this on your Amazon business. Hey, I did this, it worked for me. Oh, that's great learning. But also the, over drinks talking, about this or that strategy of getting your kid to actually do potty training, or this and that, about how do you, how are you managing your overseas workers, and how are you able to step away and have more time for yourself? Like, those conversations happen in MDS. That's really cool. That's rare. I've been around the Amazon business and this ecosystem for a long time, and that type of community is really rare. And awesome thing to what you guys have made and cultivated and continue to.
Yeah. MDS is amazing, and it just continues to get better and better. We had some great events recently. We had the MDS Connects around Amazon Innovate. And I had a lot of late nights, which I'm not used to. Like here, I'm usually in bed by like 9 o'clock when I'm at home, getting up at like 5 a.m. But over there, we're staying up till like 1, 2 a.m. Not getting drunk, like not like how it was like back in the day when I was younger, right? We're just having good conversations, hanging out with good people in cool places. And I'm sleeping in a little bit later till, 9 or 10 o'clock, but I'm waking up feeling great. And it's just all good, like good energy that comes out of that group for the most part. And we had like the MDS Japan, event, which was like a side thing just to go snowboarding. And we didn't really talk about business, we just got to enjoy each other's company. And, sure, there was a little bit of business talk, but, our businesses are really a representation of who we are. It's like an extension of ourselves, right? It's not like it's, here's work Nick and personal Nick. It's an extension of ourselves. So that stuff naturally comes out. And it's just such a great thing to be able to share with other people. Cause honestly, like I don't really have a community like that here where I'm at. So it's important to be a part of something like that. Is the men's group you're a part of like a public thing, or is that just a like something that you and some of your buddies put together or something?
Yeah, it's a personal thing, myself and buddies put together. But we're kind of talking about how can we it's served us, all of us, so well. We're having conversations about how can we try and just hand this over to others or put it out there so that others can make great use of what's become a really critical tool, I think, to all of our successes.
Yeah, I think that's super important, man. And I love how you put it, before we were CEOs, before we were husbands, before we were fathers, because you don't hear that in American culture, right? Like what you hear is you become someone else after you get married. Like you have to live differently after you have kids. And, you have to put away those old things you used to do and take your job seriously. And, in my opinion, that's what has led to like this big mental health crisis in America. And COVID really kind of popped the lid off that because you couldn't really hide it anymore. I don't think COVID necessarily caused it. I'm sure it did contribute a little bit, but I think there was already a big issue there that was just waiting, and COVID really brought it out in the open, in my opinion. So that's great that you've got that going, man. Would love to chat a little bit about if there's something there we could integrate into MDS a little bit. I think that would be a great, I think you'd have some willing people to participate over there in that group that would really get a lot of value and add some value back into what you guys have going on. So let me know if you ever want to chat more about that. I'd be happy to see if we get some interest.
That's a great idea.
Well, Nader, man, it's been great having you on, man. You have an amazing story. I even learned some new things about you. I was glad you came on, man. And, I would like to get you on again sometime. I'd love to know how things progress for you. I'd also love to learn a little more about like your tactics and tips that you would have for some people that want to take their hands off the business a little bit. So I think it would be cool to bring you on for another episode sometime in the near future.
Deal.
But yeah, for now, why don't you just let the listeners know, how they can reach out to you, how they can learn more about Data Driven, if they're interested in checking out that service. I think every MDS member should be using Data Driven, at least the self-tasking service. Craig has been able to do escalations for us too, and he's got a 100% win rate for us. I like to think that I was pretty good at handling cases and stuff, but Craig is like next level with it. And it's been so life-changing to be able to hand things off to Data Driven. And Brian, our account manager, who I'm learning, getting to know more now. We have meetings twice a week. I mean, it's like talking to another MDS member, man. I couldn't have dreamed up a better situation, honestly. So it feels really good. We're still early in it. I know I'm hyping it up a lot, but I really do expect that we're going to look back on this moment and be like, this is one of the things that really allowed us to reach our business goals and our personal goals, honestly. So I'm stoked to come back and revisit this change in our business.
That's awesome, Nick. Yeah, I'm thrilled that you're finally here and able to see the impact it can have on your business. And this conversation it's a little bit of a joke, but I almost wonder if somehow we need to write into our contracts that one of the stipulations is you have to spend X time surfing, or you have to once we deliver this value, you make sure you use it to its fullest potential, not just more emails and more crap.
That's what it's about, man. That's what it's about.
Yeah. You can find us datadriven.com, carbon6.io/datadriven. Data-driven is spelled D and then the number 8 and then A and then driven. Sounds kind of cool, looks kind of cool. It's honestly just a cheap URL back when we were trying to get started. But yeah, and my email is nader@carbon6.io. Happy to interact with anyone in the space.
Right on, Nader. Thanks for coming on, man. We'll see you again soon.
Nick. Bye, everyone.